Now, going back to David Cameron's speech on Europe, of course, he promised to hold a referendum on whether Britain should remain in the EU if he's Prime Minister after the next general election. Speaking in central London this morning, he said his government would renegotiate membership to create a flexible, adaptable and more open relationship, and that he would put that to the vote within the next 5 years.
So the next Conservative manifesto in 2015 will ask for a mandate from the British people for a Conservative government to negotiate a new settlement with our European partners in the next Parliament. It will be a relationship with the single market at its heart. And when we have negotiated that new settlement, we will give the British people a referendum with a very simple in or out choice: to stay in the European Union on these new terms or to come out altogether. It will be an in-out referendum. Legislation will be drafted before the next election, and if a Conservative government is elected, we will introduce the enabling legislation immediately and pass it by the end of that year, and we will complete this negotiation and hold this referendum within the first half of the next Parliament. It is time for the British people to have their say. It is time for us to settle this question about Britain and Europe. Now, I say to the British people, this will be your decision. And when the choice comes, you'll have an important choice to make about our country's destiny.
I had a text saying, where's Mr Farage? Well, there's your answer. Very good morning to you. Joins us from Central London.
Good morning.
A good speech, was it?
A rather old-fashioned speech, rather quaint in a way. I mean, it's the sort of speech that British Prime Ministers have been giving about our relationship with Europe for almost 50 years. The idea that we can have a flexible, more adaptable, more democratic European Union. I mean, clearly, he's not listening to what the other heads of state and what the European Commission and the European Council are saying. I mean, it's perfectly clear in Brussels that they're heading at full tilt towards a full political union. So, I mean, I do question how he's going to be able to renegotiate our relationship in a room full of people that are not inclined to do so.
I have heard you say this many times before, but what's new this morning, of course, is the promise of a referendum. Doesn't this pull the rug from under you?
Well, I mean, what's new this morning is that the whole nature of the European debate in this country has changed, and that is very good news. I mean, for 10 to 15 years, UKIP have been told that they represent a tiny minority view that frankly shouldn't be discussed in front of the children. And now the battle lines have been drawn. It is membership of the European single market as opposed to leaving the European Union. So now, really, the European debate has come onto UKIP's turf. I'm pleased about that. And in terms of the role of UKIP, well, I'm very pleased that we've helped to make this a mainstream issue. But I would say as a party, our real work has just begun.
Really, there are plenty of people who will say, well, you've now served your purpose, because David Cameron has said exactly what you've been calling for, and if you take credit for that, that's fine. But it leaves you way back in the pack, doesn't it?
I don't want the country to go through what it went through 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we were told it's a common market, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing to worry about. It's just about trade. And now we're going to be told it's a single market. There's nothing to worry about. It's not political. It's just about trade. And our job is to point out to the British people that actually most of our complaints about EU membership are because of our membership of that single market. It's through the single market that now most of our legislation is made. It's through that single market that we're prohibited from making our own trade deals globally. It's because of that single market that we pay a membership fee of £50 million a day. And the whole political establishment will rally around the single market position come the time, and we will be the only political party arguing that we should divorce ourselves from political union.
If the Prime Minister renegotiates on the basis you've just discussed, though, you would back him?
Well, if the Prime Minister said that these are grave issues and the renegotiation begins now...
Well, that's what he said. That's exactly what he said this morning.
No, it isn't. He said he's going to renegotiate after the next election. And the difficulty is that this is the same man who, of course, gave us a cast-iron guarantee in the past that if he was Prime Minister, he'd put the Lisbon Treaty to a referendum. He let us down on that, and so I think the issue of trust is really rather important.
He made the point, that perhaps some would say the distinction, that this would go ahead if he was Prime Minister. If there was a coalition with UKIP, what would you insist was in place?
Well, if there was a coalition with UKIP, then we would insist that there was a full, free and fair referendum with some proper, sensible rules, particularly on spending, on both sides of the debate, and that the referendum happened quickly. I mean, the other great problem with today is that all of this is, if he wins the election, which looks unlikely, after he's renegotiated, perhaps in 5 years' time, we'll get a vote. I don't want to wait for 5 years. I mean, that would be another £70 billion of British taxpayers' money that have been paid over in terms of contributions. And also, we face the problem on the 1st of January next year of the whole of Romania and Bulgaria having access not just to jobs in Britain, but to our benefit system as well. So I think really, this, you know, I'm pleased that we're talking about it, but the attempt to kick the can down the road for 5 years, frankly, isn't good enough.
In 2015, if it's Prime Minister Nigel Farage, what do you do?
Well, you know, I think that's a very long way off. But first things first, we have county council elections this year. In 2014, we have a European election. So there's going to be a lot more debate on this, way ahead of the commencement of the next general election.
Do you take credit for what we've heard from David Cameron this morning?
If UKIP hadn't been there, this speech simply wouldn't have happened. It's by UKIP making the arguments that whilst we want to trade with Europe and cooperate with Europe, that we don't want to be part of a political union. We have helped change British public opinion. We have emboldened many of the backbenchers in the Conservative Party, and there are some on the Labour Party too, I'm pleased to say. I think UKIP has changed the political agenda in this country, and really, you know, today in a way is our proudest achievement to date, but the real work now begins.
Prime Minister's questions at 12 o'clock. Where does this put Ed Miliband?
I find Mr Miliband's decision last week to drop the idea that Labour would support a referendum really very, very odd indeed. I would be very surprised if between now and 2015 we didn't see Labour, and probably the Lib Dems as well, matching some sort of referendum promise. I cannot believe that Labour strategists would want them to appear to be opposed to a referendum come that day. After all, there are many, many people in the Labour Party out there, old Labour, who are just as Eurosceptic as I am.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.